Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into a world that smells like dust, iron, and something you can't quite place. But your brain already knows it means trouble. You're standing in an open field, the ground uneven beneath your feet, the air strangely still, like even the wind has decided it wants no part in what's about to happen. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint clink of metal and the low murmur of voices trying to sound braver than they feel. And here's the thing. You probably won't survive this. Not statistically, not emotionally, and definitely not comfortably. So, good luck with that. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. I always find it kind of surreal imagining where in the world you're listening from while we stand here, waiting. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't move at first, not because you can't, but because something deep in your body is telling you to conserve energy, to stay still, to pretend this moment might stretch forever if you just don't disturb it. Around you, the army breathes, not as one, not in unison, but in scattered, uneven rhythms. Someone coughs, someone mutters a quiet prayer, someone else adjusts their grip on a spear, the wood creaking faintly under pressure. This is the part most people don't imagine when they think about ancient battles. Not the clash, not the heroic charge, but this long, stretched-out moment before anything actually happens. You shift your weight slightly and your sandals scrape against the dry soil. It's already warm even though the sun hasn't fully risen yet. That warmth will become something else later. Something heavier. Something harder to ignore. In front of you, the line extends. Rows of men, some barely older than boys, others hardened by years of this exact moment repeating itself. No one looks at each other for too long. Eye contact feels like an invitation to acknowledge what's coming, and most people would rather not do that just yet. Instead, you focus on small things. The way the leather strap on your arm feels slightly too tight, the faint itch beneath your collar, the weight of whatever you're holding, whether it's a spear, a shield, or something sharper, suddenly feels very real. Historians still argue whether most soldiers in ancient battles truly understood what they were about to face. Some believe many were too inexperienced to grasp the reality. Others think they knew exactly, and that's what made this silence so unbearable. A horn sounds in the distance. It's low, not dramatic, not cinematic, just a dull, hollow note that carries farther than it feels like it should. Your stomach tightens, not violently, just enough to remind you that your body has started preparing without your permission. You glance ahead. The opposing army is there now, not just shapes in the distance, but clearer forms. Lines, movement, glints of metal catching early light. They look surprisingly similar. That's something people don't always expect. There's no obvious difference. No glowing markers to tell you who's the enemy in any meaningful sense. They're standing the same way you are, adjusting their grips, shifting nervously, waiting. For a brief moment, something strange happens. You wonder what they're thinking. Not in a philosophical way, just a simple, human flicker of curiosity. Are they as tired as you? As unsure? Did they sleep last night? Or did they lie awake listening to their own heartbeat echoing in the dark? Then the thought passes. It has to. Because the horn sounds again, louder this time. Somewhere behind you, a voice calls out an order. You don't fully catch it, but you feel the effect ripple through the line. Shoulders straighten, feet adjust, shields lift slightly higher. This is where things begin to change. The silence doesn't disappear, it fractures. You start to hear more now. The creak of leather, the dull knock of wood against wood, the faint metallic ring of someone testing their grip. Your breathing becomes louder in your own ears, not faster yet, just more noticeable. A mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked is that many ancient battles didn't begin with immediate full-force charges. Sometimes, armies stood like this for extended periods, minutes, even hours, waiting for the right moment, the right signal, or simply the courage to move first. And standing here now, you understand why. Because once you move, there's no going back to this version of the moment. Once you step forward, everything changes. You roll your shoulders slightly, trying to ease the tension building there. It doesn't really help. The tension isn't just physical, It's something deeper, something coiled tight in your chest. Someone near you whispers something. You don't catch the words, but you catch the tone. It's forced calm, the kind people use when they're trying to convince themselves more than anyone else. There's a faint smell in the air now, not strong, just present. Sweat mostly. Leather, dust, and something else. A quirky detail that rarely makes it into dramatic retellings. Some ancient soldiers would carry small personal charms, bits of bone, carved wood, even scraps of cloth believed to hold protective power. You might have one tucked somewhere on you now, though you're not entirely sure it'll help. The line ahead shifts. It's subtle. A ripple more than a movement, but it's enough to make your heart beat just a little faster. Your fingers tighten around your weapon without you thinking about it. You notice your mouth feels dry. Not painfully so, just enough that swallowing becomes something you're suddenly aware of. Another order comes from behind, louder this time, sharper. And then, almost reluctantly, the line begins to move. Not a charge, not yet. Just a slow, collective step forward. You follow, because you have to. The ground crunches softly beneath your feet. Dust lifts in small, lazy clouds that hang in the air longer than they should. Step. Then another. The distance between you and the opposing line begins to shrink, almost imperceptibly at first. This is the last stretch of calm you'll get, and you know it, even if you can't fully explain how. Because something inside you, something older than logic, older than history itself, is already whispering the truth. This isn't going to be quick. This isn't going to be clean. And whatever happens next will stay with you far longer than the battle itself. You don't notice the full weight of your armour until you start walking. At first it feels manageable. Just a slight pressure across your shoulders, a firm grip around your chest, something solid and reassuring between you and whatever is coming. But with each step forward, that reassurance begins to shift into something else, something heavier, something that presses down instead of protecting. Your shoulders roll again, instinctively trying to adjust. The straps dig in a little more than they did before, not painfully, just enough to remind you that this isn't something you can forget about. The line keeps moving, slow, steady, reluctant, and now you feel everything. The heat builds first, not from the sun, it's still climbing, but from inside the armour itself. The air doesn't move much in there. It sits, it lingers, it warms against your skin in a way that feels almost personal, like it's choosing to stay. You inhale, and even your breath feels different, slightly warmer, slightly heavier. A mainstream historical fact that rarely gets enough attention is that ancient armour, especially metal types like bronze or iron, could become dangerously hot under the sun. Soldiers weren't just fighting enemies, they were fighting overheating, dehydration and fatigue all at once. And now you understand why that mattered so much, because you're not even fighting yet, and already your body's working harder than it should be. You adjust your grip on your shield, it's heavier than you remember, or maybe you're just noticing it more now. The weight pulls slightly on your arm, forcing your muscles to stay engaged constantly. There's no real rest position, not while you're moving like this. You try switching angles just a little. The relief lasts about 3 seconds before a new kind of discomfort replaces it. There's no perfect position, only different kinds of strain. The person walking beside you exhales sharply, almost like a quiet grunt. You glance at them briefly. Their face is already damp with sweat, even in this early light. Their jaw is tight, eyes forward, focused on something you can't see yet. No one talks. Talking would mean admitting something, and no one's ready for that. The ground shifts slightly beneath your feet. Uneven patches, loose stones, shallow dips. You have to watch where you step, even as you keep your eyes forward. It's a strange balance, trying to stay aware of everything at once. Ahead, the opposing line is closer now. Close enough that you can make out more details. Shapes become people, movements become intentions, and suddenly your armour doesn't feel like protection anymore. It feels like something that might slow you down. Historians still argue whether heavier armour truly provided a significant advantage in these kinds of battles, or if it simply traded one risk for another. More protection, yes, but less mobility, faster exhaustion, and a greater chance of collapse under pressure. You shift your shoulders again. The armour creaks softly. That sound sticks with you for a moment, because it's not just your armour making it, it's everywhere now. A low, constant chorus of leather stretching, metal brushing, wood tapping. The entire army sounds like it's under strain. You roll your neck slightly, trying to ease the stiffness building there. It helps, but only briefly. Sweat starts to gather along your back, trapped between your skin and the armour. There's nowhere for it to go. It just stays there, slowly spreading, making everything feel heavier, stickier. You resist the urge to scratch. You can't. Not really. Your hands are occupied. Your movements are limited. And even if you could reach, it wouldn't solve anything. It's a small discomfort. But it builds. A quirky detail that often surprises people. Some ancient soldiers would deliberately wear minimal clothing under their armour to reduce heat buildup, even though it increased the risk of chafing and skin injuries. Comfort wasn't really an option, only trade-offs. You take another step, and another. The distance continues to shrink. Now you can see faces, not clearly but enough. Enough to recognise expressions. Enough to see that they're not so different from yours. Focused, tense, quiet, waiting. Your arm starts to ache, the one holding the shield. It's subtle at first, a dull, creeping fatigue. But it grows with each passing second. You try to adjust again, shifting the weight slightly, but the relief is temporary at best. You realise something then. This isn't just about strength, it's about endurance. How long you can hold this position. How long you can keep moving, keep carrying, keep standing, without your body giving out before anything even begins. Another order echoes from behind. The line tightens slightly. Not faster, but more focused, more deliberate. Your breathing changes, still controlled, but deeper now, more purposeful. You can feel your heartbeat more clearly, not racing, just present, steady. Like a drum you didn't ask for but can't ignore, the sun climbs higher, and with it, the heat settles more firmly onto everything. Your armour warms further, not unbearably, but enough that you start to notice how it holds that warmth, how it refuses to let go. You shift your shoulders again. It doesn't help. The person ahead of you stumbles slightly, just a small misstep, but it sends a ripple through the line. You instinctively adjust, keeping your balance, maintaining the slow forward motion. No one reacts outwardly, but everyone feels it. Because if one person falls, that space matters, that gap matters, and suddenly you understand how fragile this formation really is. Not weak, just dependent. Every person holding their position, every step measured, every movement controlled. You glance down briefly at your own footing. Dust clings to your sandals, coating them in a thin layer that dulls their edges. Your toes flex slightly inside, searching for better grip. It's a small thing. But right now, small things feel important. Because everything feels important. You look up again, closer now. Too close to pretend this is still distant. Too close to imagine there's still time. Your grip tightens again. Not out of panic, just readiness, or something like it. Because whatever this armour was supposed to do, protect you, prepare you, make you feel stronger, it's doing something else now. It's reminding you that you're still human underneath it, still vulnerable, still very, very aware of what's coming next. And as the line moves forward, steady, unbroken, inevitable, you begin to realise something else. The armour won't fail all at once. It will fail slowly, piece by piece, in the heat, in the weight, in the moments where you need it most. And it simply can't keep up with everything else happening around you. The first time you really look at your weapon, it doesn't feel heroic. It feels close. Too close. You've been holding it this whole time, adjusting your grip without thinking, letting it rest in your hand like it belongs there. But now, as the distance between you and the opposing line shrinks even further, your awareness sharpens. You notice the texture of the shaft, slightly rough, worn smooth in places by hands that came before yours. There are faint marks along it, small dents, tiny splinters pressed back down. This isn't new, this has been used. And that realization settles in quietly, but firmly. You shift your fingers slightly, testing your grip. The wood creaks faintly, almost like it's responding. Your palm feels damp now, sweat making the surface just a little more slippery than you'd like. You tighten your hold, not too much, just enough to feel secure. A mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked is how simple most ancient weapons actually were. Spears, for example, were among the most common tools of war, not because they were elegant, but because they were effective, easy to produce, and required less training than more complex weapons. And standing here now, you understand why. Because there's nothing complicated about what this is meant to do. That simplicity is what makes it unsettling. You glance to your side. Someone else carries a similar weapon, though theirs looks slightly different, shorter, maybe heavier toward the tip. Another person grips something curved, the edge catching a faint glint of sunlight. Each weapon feels personal in a strange way, not decorative, not symbolic, just direct. There's no distance here, no safe space between you and whatever comes next. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers preferred longer weapons for reach or shorter ones for control in close combat. Some suggest it depended entirely on terrain and formation, while others believe personal comfort played a bigger role than strategy alone. You're not sure what you would prefer. Right now, none of the options feel particularly comforting. The line slows slightly, not stopping, but adjusting. And with that adjustment, everything feels closer again. You can hear more now, not just your side, but theirs. Voices, faint but distinct. A shout here, a call there. It's no longer distant noise, it's shared space. Your grip shifts again, almost unconsciously. You angle the weapon slightly forward, mirroring the movement of those around you. The line is tightening, preparing, aligning into something more deliberate. Your heart responds immediately, beating just a little faster now, still controlled, but no longer calm. A quirky detail that doesn't always make it into traditional accounts. Some weapons were deliberately designed to make unsettling sounds, whistling arrows, for instance, or blades that hummed faintly when swung quickly. The idea wasn't just to strike, but to disturb, to distract, to get inside the mind before anything physical even happened. And now, standing here, you realise how effective that must have been, because even without those sounds, your mind is already racing ahead. You imagine the first contact. Not clearly, not fully, just fragments. The sudden movement, the impact, the resistance, or lack of it. You swallow. Your mouth is still dry. You glance down briefly at the tip of your weapon. It's not shining, not polished to perfection, just sharp enough, practical, functional. That's all it needs to be. The person ahead of you raises their shield slightly higher. You follow, adjusting your own stance. Your body is starting to move more automatically now, reacting to the subtle cues around you. You don't need to think about it, you just do it. And that realization is both reassuring and unsettling at the same time, because it means you're becoming part of the formation, part of the movement, less individual, more collective. Another order carries from behind, short, direct, the kind that doesn't leave room for hesitation. Your steps slow again, just slightly, and now the distance between the two lines is thin enough that you can see details you couldn't before. Hands gripping weapons, eyes scanning forward, the slight tremor in someone's arm that they're trying very hard to hide. They see you too. That's the strange part. This isn't one-sided. You're just as visible, just as real. For a brief second, your eyes meet someone else's across that narrowing gap. It's not dramatic. There's no recognition, no sudden understanding, just a moment, and then it's gone, because the line shifts again, more sharply this time. You feel it immediately. The energy changes. It's no longer just anticipation, it's movement with intent. Your grip tightens fully now. No more adjusting, no more testing. This is it. Your shoulders tense, your stance steadies, your focus narrows down to what's directly in front of you. Everything else fades slightly. Not completely, but enough that it feels distant, like background noise you're no longer paying attention to. The world becomes smaller, simpler. Forward, hold, wait. A mainstream truth about ancient combat begins to settle into your mind now. Not something you read, but something you feel. This wasn't about grand strategy in the moment of impact. It was about immediacy, reaction, survival, and the weapon in your hand. It's not just a tool, it's an extension of that instinct. The line halts, not completely, but enough that the forward motion pauses. A breath. A single, stretched out moment where everything hangs in place again. But this time, it's different from before, because now you're close enough to hear individual breaths from the other side, close enough to see the tension in their shoulders, the way their grips mirror yours almost exactly. Close enough to understand that whatever happens next will happen fast and very, very close. You adjust your footing one last time. Your fingers press firmly against the weapon, grounding yourself in something solid, something real. Because in this moment, right before everything breaks open, that's all you have. The sound doesn't arrive all at once, it builds. At first, it's just a shift in the air, a subtle change like the moment before rain where everything feels slightly charged. Then, somewhere to your left, a drum begins. Slow, heavy. A deep, hollow rhythm that seems to come from the ground itself rather than any single person. You feel it before you fully hear it. A second drum answers, then another. The beats don't perfectly match, but they don't need to. Together they form something larger, something that pushes forward, pressing against your chest in a steady, unrelenting pattern. Your heartbeat tries to follow it, and for a moment, it almost does. A mainstream historical fact. Drums and horns were often used in ancient battles not just for signalling orders, but to unify movement and intimidate the enemy. Sound carried farther than voices, especially across open fields, and it had a powerful effect on morale, on both sides. Now you understand why. Because the silence you were clinging to, it's gone, completely. A horn cuts through the rhythm, sharp, loud. It doesn't echo, it slices. Your entire body reacts before your mind catches up. Shoulders tense, grip tightens, breath pauses halfway through your chest. And then, the shouting starts. Not one voice, not even a few, hundreds. It rises unevenly, chaotic, almost disorganized at first. Some voices crack, some shout too early, too loudly, like they're trying to outrun their own fear. Others join in more steadily, building the volume into something overwhelming. You hear words, but they blur together. Commands, cries, names of gods, fragments of courage shouted into the air as if volume alone can make them real. The opposing line answers, and suddenly it's not just noise, it's collision. Before the physical one even happens, sound crashing into sound. Your ears strain to make sense of it, but there's too much, too many layers. The drums, the horns, the shouting, the clatter of movement as shields lift higher, weapons angle forward, feet begin to move faster, because now, finally, the pace changes. The slow measured steps become something quicker. Not quite a run yet, but no longer cautious. The line surges forward, pulled by something stronger than individual hesitation. You move with it. You have no choice. Dust rises immediately, thicker now, kicked up by dozens, hundreds of feet, striking the ground harder, faster. It hangs in the air, turning everything slightly hazy, slightly unreal. You blink, trying to keep your vision clear, but the sound is what overwhelms you. A quirky detail historians sometimes mention: certain armies would deliberately scream or chant in unison right before impact, not just to scare the enemy, but to drown out their own fear. The human brain, flooded with noise, has less space to focus on panic. Standing here, you can feel that happening. Because your thoughts are no longer clear. They're scattered, broken into pieces by the sheer volume around you. Another horn blast, closer now. Your line responds instinctively. Shields come up fully. Weapons level out. The formation tightens, compressing slightly as everyone braces for what's coming. Your breathing speeds up. You don't notice it at first. Then suddenly it's all you can hear inside your own head. Loud, uneven, fighting to keep pace with everything else. Inhale, exhale, too fast. You try to slow it down. It doesn't work. The ground shakes faintly, not from anything dramatic, just the combined force of movement. So many bodies, all pushing forward at once, creating a subtle vibration that travels up through your feet, into your legs. You tighten your stance, adjusting without thinking. Ahead, shapes are no longer shapes. They're people, close, too close. You can see their faces now, clear enough to catch details you weren't prepared for. The strain in their expressions, the tension in their jaws, the wide focus in their eyes that mirrors your own. They're shouting too. You can hear individual voices now, breaking through the chaos in sharp, jagged bursts. Historians still argue whether soldiers actually heard specific commands during this moment, or if most of it dissolved into noise, leaving individuals to react on instinct alone. Standing here, it's hard to imagine anyone clearly understanding anything beyond the immediate. Another step forward. Faster now. The line is no longer perfectly straight. It wavers slightly, bends in places, adjusts to uneven ground and uneven confidence. But it doesn't stop. Your grip is locked now. No more adjustments. Your hands feel almost fused to the weapon, your fingers pressing tightly enough that they begin to ache. But you don't loosen them. You can't. The drums are louder. Or maybe you're just closer. It doesn't matter. Everything is louder. The air feels thicker, filled with dust and sound and something else. Something charged, almost electric, even though there's no storm in sight. Your shoulders tense further, muscles coiling as if they already know what's about to happen. The person ahead of you lets out a sharp yell. Not words, just sound. Raw. Immediate. You feel it in your chest more than you hear it. And then, it happens. Not a single moment. Not a clean line, but a breaking point. The distance disappears in an instant. 1 step, 2, and suddenly there's no space left. The sound shifts again. Sharper now, more chaotic. Wood striking wood. Metal glancing off metal. The dull, heavy thud of impact as bodies meet resistance instead of empty air. Your own movement stops abruptly, not because you chose to, but because something in front of you refuses to give way. The line compresses. Pressure builds from behind as those still moving forward collide with those who've already stopped. You're pushed slightly, your footing adjusting instinctively to keep balance. The noise is overwhelming now, not layered anymore, just constant. A wall of sound pressing in from every direction. You can't hear the drums anymore. You can't distinguish the horns. It's all blended into something raw and immediate and impossible to separate. Your focus narrows even further. Forward. Just forward. Because everything else, every other sense, every other thought, has been swallowed by the sound of war finally beginning. The moment the lines meet, everything you thought was structured isn't. It doesn't collapse instantly. Not in some dramatic, sweeping failure. It unravels, piece by piece, tension by tension, until the shape you were relying on simply stops existing in any meaningful way. At first, you still feel the formation. Your shield presses against the one beside you. Your stance matches the rhythm of those around you. There's a sense, fragile but real, that you're still part of something coordinated. Then someone stumbles. You don't see it clearly. You just feel the shift. A sudden gap where there shouldn't be one, a break in the steady pressure. The person ahead leans too far or steps too late, or gets pushed just slightly off balance, and that's all it takes. The space opens for a second, and the other side notices. A mainstream historical fact. In many ancient battles, formations like the Greek phalanx or Roman maniples depended heavily on maintaining tight cohesion. Once even a small section broke, it could trigger a chain reaction, rapidly dissolving the entire structure. You feel that reaction beginning now. The pressure from behind increases as those still moving forward collide with hesitation in front. Your footing becomes unstable, your balance something you actively fight to keep rather than something you assume. You shift your weight quickly, planting your foot harder into the ground. Dust kicks up around your ankles, thick and dry, clinging to your skin. The neat line you were part of bends, then twists, then fragments. Suddenly, you're not perfectly aligned with the people beside you anymore. There are angles where there shouldn't be angles, gaps where there shouldn't be gaps, and those gaps matter. They invite movement. They invite chaos. Historians still argue whether soldiers were trained to recover from these breaks effectively, or if most units simply relied on discipline and hope to hold together under pressure. Watching it happen from inside, it feels less like a controlled adjustment, and more like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips. It spreads. You feel a sudden push from your right. Not intentional. Just the force of someone trying to keep their own balance. You adjust instinctively, stepping sideways, your shoulder brushing hard against theirs. The contact is sharp, grounding, real. You're no longer moving as one, you're reacting. The sounds change again. Not louder, but more scattered. Instead of one overwhelming wall, It's now 1,000 smaller collisions happening all around you. Sharp knocks, short bursts of shouting, the scrape of wood against wood, sometimes followed by a sudden silence that feels heavier than the noise itself. Your focus narrows even further. Not the whole line, not the battle, just what's directly in front of you, because that's all you can manage now. A quirky detail often overlooked. In the chaos of collapsing formations, soldiers sometimes lost track of which direction they were even facing relative to their original line. The battlefield could turn disorienting incredibly quickly, especially once dust and movement obscured clear visual cues. You're starting to feel that now. The sense of direction, the neat forward push, fades. There's only movement and resistance. You take a step forward, but it's not coordinated anymore. It's reactive. You move because there's space, because there's pressure behind you, because standing still isn't really an option. Your shield lifts slightly higher, almost instinctively. Something strikes it, hard enough to jolt your arm but not enough to break through. The impact vibrates up into your shoulder, a dull shock that lingers longer than you expect. You don't even see what caused it. It happens too fast. Your grip tightens further. You adjust your stance again, feet shifting, searching for stability on ground that now feels less predictable with every second. Around you, the structure continues to dissolve. What was once a line is now clusters, small groups, individuals. The distance between people fluctuates constantly, closing, opening, collapsing again. There's no rhythm to it anymore, only momentum, and that momentum isn't controlled. It surges, it stalls, it redirects without warning. You hear someone shout an order nearby, but it gets swallowed almost instantly by everything else. Whether it was meant for you, for the group, or for someone else entirely, you don't know, and you don't have time to figure it out. Because another push comes from behind, stronger this time. You stumble forward half a step, catching yourself just in time. Your foot slides slightly in the dust before finding purchase again. Your breathing is no longer controlled. It's fast, uneven. Each inhale feels shorter than the last, like your body is trying to keep up with something it can't quite match. You try to steady it. It doesn't work. The person who was beside you moments ago, close enough that your shoulders touched, is no longer there. Not gone. Just somewhere else in the shifting mass. Replaced by someone you don't recognize. It happens that quickly, that quietly, and it leaves you with a strange realization. You're more alone now than you were a few moments ago, even though you're surrounded by people. A mainstream truth about ancient battles becomes painfully clear in this moment. Once formations broke, individual survival depended less on grand tactics and more on immediate awareness, quick reactions, and sometimes sheer luck. You feel that shift completely now. There's no larger pattern guiding you, no clear direction, just decisions made second by second. Move, hold, adjust, react. Your shoulders ache from the constant tension. Your arm holding the shield feels heavier with every passing moment. The earlier fatigue now building into something more persistent. You can't relax it, not even for a second. Because the moment you do, that's when something gets through. You shift your grip again, fingers tightening, readjusting to keep control as your palm grows slick with sweat. The dust in the air thickens further, turning the space around you hazy. Faces blur slightly at the edges. Movements become harder to track beyond a few steps ahead. It's not darkness, but it might as well be, because clarity is gone, and with it, the illusion of control. You're no longer part of a clean, organized battle. You're inside something messier, something unpredictable, something that doesn't follow neat lines or simple rules. And as you steady yourself once more, feet planted, grip firm, breath uneven, you begin to understand just how quickly order can disappear, not in a grand collapse, but in 1,000 small, unstoppable shifts. At some point, without a clear signal, fear stops being something distant and becomes something physical. You don't notice the exact moment it happens. There's no clean transition, no sudden realization. It just settles in, quietly, completely. Your chest feels tighter now, not painfully, but enough that every breath requires a little more effort than before. Your hands, already gripping your weapon, feel slightly less steady, even though you're holding on just as tightly. And your thoughts, they don't disappear, they scatter. You try to focus on what's in front of you, but your mind keeps slipping sideways, jumping ahead, imagining outcomes you don't want to fully picture. What if you step wrong? What if your grip fails? What if you stop that thought before it finishes? Because you have to. A mainstream historical fact: many ancient soldiers weren't professional warriors. They were farmers, labourers, ordinary people pulled into conflict when needed. Which meant that for a large portion of those on the field, this wasn't routine. It was overwhelming, unfamiliar, and deeply frightening. And right now, you feel exactly that. Unfamiliar, overwhelmed. Your body reacts before your mind can keep up. Your breathing becomes sharper, shorter inhales, quicker exhales. Your heart pounds harder, not wildly, but insistently, like it's trying to push you into motion whether you're ready or not. You take a step forward, then hesitate, just for a fraction of a second. But that hesitation feels enormous, because in a space where everything is moving, even a brief pause stands out. You correct it quickly, stepping again, matching the shifting movement around you. No one notices. Or maybe they do, but they're too focused on their own survival to care. Historians still argue whether fear made ancient soldiers more dangerous or more likely to break. Some believe it sharpened instincts, heightening awareness and reaction speed. Others suggest it caused panic, leading to mistakes and collapse. Standing here, it feels like both are true at the same time. You're more alert than you've ever been, and more uncertain. Your grip tightens again, almost painfully now. Your fingers press into the wood, knuckles stiff, refusing to loosen even slightly, because letting go, even a little, feels unthinkable. A sudden movement to your left catches your attention. Someone turns sharply, their posture changing in a way that signals something's wrong. Not dramatically, just enough that your own body reacts, tension spiking instantly. You shift your stance, adjusting to face forward again, but your awareness stretches wider now. You're no longer focused on a single point. You're scanning, constantly. Too many directions, too many possibilities. A quirky detail from historical accounts. Some soldiers reportedly froze in the middle of battle, not out of cowardice, but because their minds simply couldn't process the overwhelming sensory input all at once. The noise, the movement, the pressure, it became too much. You understand how that could happen, because for a brief moment, just a flicker, you feel it too. That pull, that urge to stop, to do nothing, to wait for everything to pass. But it doesn't pass, it presses closer, and your body refuses to stay still. Another push from behind forces you forward again, not aggressively, just enough to keep the movement going. You stumble half a step, then recover, your foot sliding slightly before finding solid ground. Your breathing spikes again. You try to steady it. Inhale. Too fast. Exhale. Too short. It doesn't settle. Instead, it builds. Your chest rises and falls more noticeably now, each breath louder in your ears than the sounds around you, even though those sounds are still overwhelming. You swallow. Your throat feels dry. Your mouth, emptier than before. You don't remember when you last drank anything. Time feels strange now, stretched in some places, compressed in others. Moments blur together, while certain details, small, random things, stand out with uncomfortable clarity. The way someone's sandal drags slightly in the dust, the faint tremor in your own arm as you hold your weapon steady, the sound of your own breath, louder than it should be. These details stick. They anchor you, because everything else feels like it's slipping. You take another step, and this time you don't hesitate. Not because you feel brave, but because hesitation feels worse, more dangerous. You realize something then, something simple, but important. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to keep moving, even if your mind is racing, even if your body feels tight, strained, ready to react to things you can't even fully see yet. Movement becomes its own kind of control, a way to push through the uncertainty. Your shoulders remain tense, your stance slightly rigid, but there's a rhythm forming. Not calm, not comfortable, but functional. Step, adjust, breathe, step again. Around you, others seem to be doing the same. Not coordinated, not synchronized, but surviving in their own small ways, managing their fear one movement at a time. You catch a glimpse of someone's face nearby. Their expression mirrors your own more than you'd like to admit, focused, strained. just barely holding everything together. And that's when it becomes clear. You're not alone in this feeling. Everyone here is carrying it, some better than others, some hiding it more effectively. But it's there, in every tightened grip, in every quickened breath, in every step that feels just a little too heavy. Fear isn't something that arrives dramatically. It's something that builds, layer by layer, until it becomes part of everything you do. And as you move forward, steady, tense, aware, you realize something else. Fear doesn't stop you, not completely. It shapes you, guides your reactions, sharpens some instincts, clouds others. It becomes part of the way you move through this moment. Not an obstacle, but a constant presence. And the real challenge isn't getting rid of it. It's learning how to keep going with it still there. The heat doesn't arrive suddenly. It creeps in. At first, it's just a background presence, something you noticed earlier but could ignore while everything else demanded your attention. But now, as the movement continues and the chaos settles into a relentless rhythm, it becomes impossible to push aside. It's everywhere. The sun has climbed higher, pressing down with a steady, unforgiving weight. The armour that once felt merely heavy now feels warm, then hot, then almost suffocating in the way it traps that heat against your body. Your back is damp, not slightly, completely. Sweat gathers, spreads, and stays there, caught between your skin and the armour with nowhere to go. Every movement makes you more aware of it, the slick, uncomfortable shift that reminds you just how little relief you're getting. A mainstream historical fact. Heat exhaustion and dehydration were among the most common causes of collapse in ancient battles, sometimes affecting soldiers before they even engaged fully in combat. Fighting under direct sun, often with limited water, pushed the human body to its limits quickly. You're starting to feel those limits now. Your breathing, already uneven from tension, becomes heavier. Not faster necessarily, just more laboured. Each inhale feels thicker, as if the air itself has weight. You swallow again. Your throat is dry, still dry. It hasn't improved. Your tongue feels heavier in your mouth, your lips slightly cracked at the edges. You don't remember when this started, but it's there now. Persistent, distracting. You take another step. Your legs respond, but there's a subtle delay. Not enough to stop you, but enough that you notice. Fatigue is setting in. Not the kind that makes you collapse, the kind that slows you down, just a fraction at a time. Historians still argue how long most ancient battles truly lasted at peak intensity. Some suggest short bursts of extreme violence, while others believe prolonged engagement under harsh conditions was more common than we assume. Either way, endurance wasn't optional, it was everything. You're beginning to understand why. Because this isn't just about surviving the moment, it's about lasting through it. Your arm holding the shield feels heavier than before. The ache has deepened into something more constant, more insistent. You try to shift the weight slightly, adjusting your grip, but the relief is brief. Your muscles are tired, and they're not getting a break. A gust of movement passes through the crowd. Not wind, just bodies shifting, pressing, adjusting. It stirs up more dust, thickening the air around you. You inhale. It catches slightly in your throat. Dry. Rough. You cough once, sharply, before forcing yourself to steady again. A quirky detail from ancient accounts. Soldiers sometimes bit down on small pieces of leather or cloth during prolonged exertion, not just to steady their breathing, but to cope with dryness and keep their mouths from cracking under constant heat. You wish you had something like that now, anything to ease this constant dryness, but there's nothing, just heat and effort. You take another step. Your foot lands slightly off balance this time. Not enough to fall, but enough to send a brief jolt of tension through your body as you correct yourself quickly. That small mistake feels bigger than it should, because it reminds you how thin the margin is, how little room there is for error. Your shoulders sag slightly before you force them back up again. The armour shifts with the movement, pressing differently against your body, finding new places to dig in. There's no comfort left in it now, only function. Around you, the same strain shows in others. Movements are less precise, steps are heavier. The clean edges of motion you might have imagined earlier are gone, replaced by something slower, more effortful. But no one stops, no one can. The momentum continues, carried not by energy alone, but by necessity. You hear a sharp exhale nearby, someone struggling to keep their breath steady. You glance briefly, catching a glimpse of their face. Sweat streaks through the dust on their skin, leaving uneven lines that make their expression look even more strained. You look forward again quickly, because focusing on others doesn't help. It just reminds you of what you're feeling too. Your heartbeat feels heavier now, not faster, just stronger. Each beat more noticeable, more present, like it's pushing against the rest of your body. You inhale deeply. It doesn't feel like enough. You inhale again. Still not enough. Your chest rises and falls with effort. Your breathing no longer something you can ignore or control easily. It just happens. You realize something then. Something simple, but unsettling. Your body is working harder than your mind can keep track of, and it's starting to show. Another step, then another. Each one feels slightly heavier than the last. The ground beneath you hasn't changed, but it feels like it has, as if the effort required to move across it has quietly increased. Your grip tightens again, not out of fear this time, but necessity. You need something stable, something solid to hold on to, because everything else, the heat, the dust, the fatigue, is slowly wearing you down. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare becomes clear in this moment. Battles weren't just decided by weapons or strategy, but by which side could endure longer under unbearable conditions, and endurance is slipping, little by little. You roll your shoulders again, trying to ease the tension, but it barely helps. The ache remains, settling deeper into your muscles. You adjust your stance, planting your feet more firmly, trying to conserve energy where you can. Small changes, small efforts, because that's all you can manage now. The air feels thicker still, the dust hanging longer, the heat pressing harder. There's no relief in sight. No pause, no moment to recover, only forward movement, only continuation. And as you take another step, slow, heavy, deliberate, you begin to understand something important. This isn't just a battle against what's in front of you, it's a battle against your own limits, against how long your body can keep going before it starts to fail in small, quiet ways, ways that don't announce themselves, ways that just happen, one step at a time. At some point, distance stops existing, not gradually, not in a way you can track. One moment, there's still a sense of space, tight, chaotic, but present. The next, there isn't. Everything is close, too close. You don't have to reach forward anymore. You're already there. The space between you and the person in front of you has collapsed into something immediate, something that leaves no room for hesitation or adjustment. Your weapon, which once felt like something you controlled, now feels like it's part of a much tighter space. Movements are smaller, sharper, limited by the presence of bodies on all sides. You raise it slightly, just enough to maintain position, but even that small motion feels constrained. There's resistance in the air itself, as if the sheer density of people has made movement heavier. A mainstream historical fact. Most injuries in ancient battles occurred at very close range, often within arm's reach, where weapons were used quickly, repeatedly, and without the sweeping motions we often imagine. Standing here now, you understand why. There's no room for anything else. You shift your footing, trying to create a bit more space around you. It doesn't work. The ground is crowded, uneven, constantly shifting beneath the weight of movement. Someone brushes hard against your shoulder, another presses in from the side. None of it is intentional. It's just unavoidable. The world has shrunk to this small compressed space. Your breathing becomes sharper again, not just from exertion but from proximity. The air feels shared, used, slightly warmer than it should be. You inhale quickly, then again, trying to find a rhythm that fits this new intensity. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers trained specifically for this kind of close-quarters pressure, or if most of them were simply forced to adapt in the moment. From inside it, it feels like adaptation, constant, immediate, never quite enough. You notice your grip tightening again, fingers pressing harder than necessary. Your knuckles ache slightly, but you don't loosen them. You can't afford to. A sudden movement in front of you, quick, sharp, pulls your focus even tighter. You react instinctively, adjusting your stance, shifting your weight to stay balanced. Your shield rises a fraction higher, your body moves before your mind fully processes why. That's the pattern now. Reaction before thought, instinct before analysis. A quirky detail. Some ancient fighters were known to shorten their grip on longer weapons during close combat, holding them closer to the centre to manoeuvre in tight spaces. It wasn't elegant, but it worked when distance disappeared. You find yourself doing something similar. Your hands shift slightly, adjusting your hold to keep control in the cramped space. The movement feels awkward at first, then necessary. The sounds around you are sharper now, not louder, just closer. Every impact, every movement, every breath feels like it's happening right next to you. Because it is. You hear someone exhale sharply. Another voice, short, strained, cut off almost immediately. The noise doesn't echo anymore. It stays here, trapped in this tight space. Your shoulders tense further, muscles coiling as if they're constantly preparing for something that could happen at any second. You take a small step forward. It's barely a step, more like a shift. But it matters, because even that tiny movement changes the space around you, changes what's within reach, changes what isn't. Your focus narrows again, if that's even possible. You're no longer aware of the wider battlefield, not the lines, not the formations, just this immediate circle of movement and pressure, a few feet in every direction. That's your entire world now. A mainstream truth becomes clear in a way no description could fully capture. Ancient combat wasn't about sweeping motions or grand gestures. It was about quick, controlled movements in tight spaces, where hesitation cost more than effort. You feel that truth in every second. Your body remains tense, ready, constantly adjusting. You don't relax. You can't. Even a moment of looseness feels wrong, dangerous in a way you can't fully explain. Your breathing steadies slightly, not calm but more controlled than before. You've found a rhythm that fits this closeness, this intensity. Short inhales, quick exhales, enough to keep going. Another shift in the crowd presses you slightly to the side. You adjust again, feet sliding just enough to maintain balance. Your arm holding the shield trembles briefly, not from fear but from strain. You steady it quickly, you have to. Because everything here depends on small, constant corrections. There's no space for large adjustments, only tiny ones. Over and over again, you become aware of something else now, something subtle but constant. The sense that everything is happening faster, not because time has changed, but because your reactions have. You're processing less, reacting more, moving in shorter bursts, quicker decisions, smaller margins. It's exhausting, but it's also necessary. Because this is what the battle has become, not a distant clash, not a structured engagement, but a series of immediate, close, relentless interactions where every movement matters more than the last. You tighten your grip again, adjust your stance, take another small step forward, and as you do, you realize something that lingers quietly beneath everything else. There's no escaping this space, not right now, not easily. You're in it, completely, and the only way through is forward. At some point you realize something unsettling. No one is really in control anymore, not in the way you imagined. There were commanders, of course. There were plans, signals, carefully arranged formations that were supposed to guide everything. But here, in this tight, shifting space, those plans feel distant, almost theoretical. You hear a voice shouting behind you, loud, urgent. It sounds like an order, but you don't know what it is. You catch fragments, single words, broken pieces, but they don't form anything clear. The sound gets swallowed almost instantly by everything else around you. You glance back for a split second. You shouldn't, but you do, and all you see is more movement, more confusion. No clear figure directing anything, just shapes and motion and dust blurring everything together. You turn forward again quickly, because whatever that order was, it didn't reach you. A mainstream historical fact, communication during ancient battles was incredibly limited. Commands were often relayed through horns, flags, or shouted instructions, but once fighting began, much of that communication broke down almost entirely. Now you feel that breakdown firsthand. The structure that once felt fragile but present is gone, replaced by something far more uncertain. Historians still argue how much control commanders actually had once a battle fully engaged. Some believe experienced leaders could still influence key moments, while others argue that once formations collapsed, outcomes depended more on individual actions than centralized strategy. Standing here, it feels like the latter, because no one near you is waiting for instructions anymore. They're reacting, just like you. A sudden shift to your right pulls your attention. Someone moves sharply, adjusting position, their body turning in a way that suggests they're responding to something you didn't see. You instinctively adjust too, not because you understand the situation, but because their movement affects yours. That's how it works now. One action leads to another, a chain of reactions without a clear starting point. You tighten your grip again, your hands almost locked in place from constant tension. Your fingers ache, but you barely register it anymore. There are too many other things demanding your attention. Another shout rises somewhere behind you. Different voice, different tone, same result, lost completely. A quirky detail. Some ancient armies use brightly coloured standards or banners to signal movement and maintain cohesion. But in the chaos of close combat, especially with dust and crowding, those visual signals could easily disappear from sight. You try to look for something like that now. A marker, a direction, anything that tells you where you're supposed to be. But there's nothing clear, just shifting shapes, and movement that doesn't follow any obvious pattern. You take a small step forward, then hesitate, unsure if that's even the right direction anymore. Right direction. The thought feels almost irrelevant now, because there's no clear right, only what's directly in front of you. A mainstream truth about ancient battles becomes clearer with every passing second. Once the initial plan unravelled, the battlefield became a series of small, localised struggles, rather than a single coordinated event. You're inside one of those now. Your world has shrunk again, not just physically, but in terms of awareness. You're no longer thinking about the battle as a whole. You're thinking about your footing, your grip, the space directly around you. That's it. Another push from behind shifts your position slightly forward. You adjust quickly, feet sliding, shoulders tightening to maintain balance. Your body moves faster than your thoughts can keep up. And maybe that's the point, because thinking too much here doesn't help. You hear a sudden sharp sound nearby, something striking against something else with enough force to carry through the noise. You flinch slightly, your body reacting before you can process what it was. Your shield lifts instinctively, your stance lowers, ready, even if you don't know for what. You realise then, you're no longer waiting for instructions. You're not even expecting them. You're operating on something else entirely. Instinct, observation, reaction. It's not organised, it's not clean, but it's what keeps you moving. Another voice rises, closer this time. You turn your head slightly, catching a glimpse of someone gesturing, trying to signal something. Their movements are sharp, urgent, clearly meant to direct attention. But it doesn't spread. The signal doesn't travel. It stops almost immediately, absorbed by the chaos around it, like a ripple that fades before it reaches the edge. You face forward again, because there's nothing else to do, no larger pattern to follow, no clear direction to trust, just the moment, and your place in it. Your breathing steadies slightly, not calm but controlled enough to keep going. Your muscles remain tense, your movements sharp and deliberate, even if they're no longer guided by anything beyond immediate necessity. You take another step, then another, each one small, measured, because large movements don't work here anymore, they don't fit. Everything has to be precise, compact, efficient. You glance around briefly, just enough to confirm what you already suspect. No clear line, no clear command, just individuals and small clusters, each navigating their own version of the same chaos. And in that realization, something shifts. Not outwardly, but internally. You stop looking for direction, stop expecting clarity, because it's not coming back. Not here, not now. The battle has moved beyond that point, and as you steady yourself once more, feet planted, grip firm, eyes forward, you understand something that settles quietly, but completely. Whatever happens next will depend on you, not a commander, not a signal, just you, and how well you can keep reacting to a world that no longer makes sense. You start to notice something strange. Not everything around you is physical. Some of it is deliberate, not strikes, not movement, but signals. Subtle, unsettling things meant to get inside your head before anything else reaches you. It begins with sound again, but different this time. Not the chaotic noise from before. This is sharper, more intentional. A sudden unified shout rises from somewhere ahead. Not constant, not scattered, but timed. It cuts through everything else, loud enough to make you flinch without meaning to. Your shoulders tense instantly. Your grip tightens. And for a moment, your focus breaks. That's the point. A mainstream historical fact. Many ancient armies used psychological tactics, coordinated shouting, rhythmic chanting, even synchronized movements to intimidate opponents and disrupt their concentration before or during combat. Standing here, you feel exactly how effective that can be. Because it doesn't need to last long, just a second of distraction is enough. You steady yourself quickly, forcing your attention back to what's directly in front of you. But something has shifted. Not the space, not the movement, your state of mind. You're more alert now, but also more tense. Your reactions sharpen, but your thoughts narrow further, leaving less room for anything beyond immediate response. Historians still argue how much psychological warfare influenced outcomes compared to physical strength or strategy. Some believe fear and intimidation played a decisive role, especially in less disciplined forces. Others argue it only mattered at the edges, where morale was already fragile. But here, inside the moment, it feels significant, because your body reacts to it whether you want it to or not. Another sound cuts through the chaos, this time not a shout but something higher pitched, almost unnatural. For a split second you can't place it. Then you realise it's a kind of whistling, not wind, not quite mechanical, just sharp. A quirky detail. Certain ancient projectiles, like specially designed arrows, were crafted to produce whistling or screaming sounds as they travelled through the air. The goal wasn't just accuracy, it was fear, confusion and distraction. You don't see anything, but the sound is enough. Your head tilts slightly, your attention pulled upward for just a fraction of a second. Again, that's all it takes. You correct yourself quickly, forcing your focus forward again. But your mind is no longer steady. It's reacting to more than just what you can see. Every sound now feels like a signal. Every shift feels intentional, even when it might not be. You take a step, then adjust, your movements slightly sharper than before. Not smoother, just more reactive. Your breathing quickens again, matching the increased tension in your body. Short, fast, controlled only in the sense that you're still moving. Another coordinated shout rises, closer this time. You feel it in your chest, not just your ears. It's not just noise, it's pressure. Something designed to push against your focus, your composure, your sense of control. You tighten your stance again, feet planting more firmly into the ground. You're compensating now for something you can't fully see. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare settles in quietly. Battles weren't just fought with weapons, but with perception, who seemed stronger, louder, more relentless. The mind often reacted before the body had a chance to catch up. You're feeling that lag now. Your body tenses before you understand why. Your grip tightens before you consciously decide to hold on. Your breathing shifts before you notice it happening. You're not fully in control anymore. You're responding, constantly. A sudden movement to your left pulls your attention again. Someone reacting to something you didn't catch. Their posture changes abruptly, their stance tightening as if bracing for impact. You mirror it without thinking. Your shield rises slightly, your body angles, prepared, even if you don't know for what. That's how it spreads. Not through clear commands, but through reaction, through instinct. One person's tension becomes another's. One movement ripples outward, affecting everyone nearby. Historians still debate whether these psychological effects were intentionally coordinated or simply emerged naturally from the chaos of battle. But either way, they worked, because you're feeling it now, the constant edge, the heightened awareness, the sense that something could happen from any direction at any moment. You take another step forward, careful, deliberate, but your mind is no longer just focused on the immediate physical space. It's scanning for signals, for sounds, for anything that feels out of place. Even if everything feels out of place, your shoulders remain tight, your muscles coiled, ready to react faster than before. But that readiness comes at a cost. You're burning energy faster, thinking less clearly, reacting more sharply. It's effective, but exhausting. Another sharp sound cuts through the air. You flinch again, smaller this time, quicker to recover but still noticeable. Your body is learning, adapting, but not without strain. A quirky observation from ancient sources. Some soldiers reportedly covered their ears briefly during intense moments, not to block sound entirely, but to regain a sense of control over overwhelming noise. It was a small, instinctive act of self-preservation. You feel the urge to do something similar, just for a second, to quiet everything. But you can't. Your hands are occupied, your attention locked. There's no room for that kind of pause, so you keep moving, adjusting, reacting. Your breathing steadies slightly again, not calm but controlled enough to maintain function. Your focus narrows back down to what you can directly influence. Step, hold, adjust, react, because that's all you can rely on now. Not clear signals, not organized commands, just your ability to keep responding to a world that's constantly trying to overwhelm you, not just physically, but mentally. And as you take another measured step forward, your grip firm, your stance steady, your awareness stretched thin in every direction, you realize something that settles quietly beneath everything else. The battle isn't just around you anymore, it's inside your head too. At some point the light begins to change. You don't notice it immediately. It's subtle. Just a slight softening at the edges of everything, a shift in the colour of the dust hanging in the air. The harsh brightness that once pressed down on you all day begins to ease, almost reluctantly, as if even the sun is tired of watching. But the battle doesn't follow that change. It continues. Your body feels it first, the passing of time, not through clocks or markers, but through exhaustion settling deeper into your muscles. Your shoulders ache in a way that feels older now, heavier. Your legs respond more slowly, each step requiring just a bit more effort than before. And your mind feels stretched thin. You're still reacting, still moving, still adjusting. But the sharpness from earlier has dulled slightly, replaced by something more worn, more fragile. A mainstream historical fact, many ancient battles lasted long enough to extend into late afternoon or even evening, depending on conditions and the will of both sides. Fighting didn't always stop when the sun went down. It often slowed, fractured, or shifted into something less structured. You're starting to feel that shift now. The intensity doesn't vanish, it changes shape. Historians still argue whether nightfall brought relief or increased danger. Some suggest it allowed soldiers to disengage and recover. Others believe it introduced confusion, fear, and new risks as visibility dropped and coordination became nearly impossible. Standing here, it feels like both possibilities exist at once. The light fades further, not darkness yet, just dimmer, softer, but enough to make details harder to catch. Faces blur at the edges, movements become less precise, more shadowed. The dust in the air, once bright and golden, now takes on a muted tone, hanging like a thin veil between you and everything else. You blink, trying to adjust. Your eyes strain slightly, working harder to pick up the same details they managed effortlessly before. Your focus tightens again, not out of choice, but necessity. You can't rely on distance anymore. Everything has to be closer, more immediate. A sudden movement nearby makes you turn your head sharply. It's just someone shifting position, nothing more. But in this dimming light, it feels larger than it should, more uncertain. A quirky detail from historical accounts. Some armies deliberately avoided fighting at night because even small misjudgments, mistaking a friend for an enemy, losing direction, could spiral into complete disarray. Others, however, used the darkness to retreat or reposition, trusting confusion as cover. You understand that hesitation now, because already things feel less clear, less certain. You take a step forward, carefully, more deliberately than before. Your foot lands slower, your balance checked twice before committing fully. You can't afford missteps now, not when visibility is slipping. Your breathing remains steady, but heavier. Each inhale feels like it has to work harder. pulling in air that's cooler now but no less thick with dust and effort. You swallow again, still dry. That hasn't changed. Your grip remains tight, your fingers stiff from hours of tension. There's a dull ache there now, constant, familiar, but you barely register it anymore. It's just part of everything else. Another sound rises, quieter than before. Not the sharp, overwhelming noise from earlier, but something more scattered. Voices still present, but less coordinated, less unified. The battle is losing its earlier rhythm, not ending, just thinning, breaking into smaller, disconnected moments. You glance around briefly. Shapes move in uneven patterns now. No clear lines, no obvious formations, just individuals and small clusters navigating their own spaces within the fading light. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare becomes clearer in this moment. Battles rarely ended with a single decisive moment. More often they faded, gradually, unevenly, until one side broke, withdrew, or simply couldn't continue. You feel that fading now, not as relief, but as uncertainty, because the structure that once guided everything, however fragile, has been replaced by something harder to predict. Darkness isn't here yet, but it's coming, and with it, a different kind of fear. You take another step, slower, more deliberate. Your body no longer pushes forward automatically. Every movement now feels chosen, considered, even if only for a fraction of a second. Your senses stretch wider, trying to compensate for what your eyes are starting to lose. You listen more, feel more, react to smaller cues. A faint sound to your right makes you turn slightly, not fully, just enough to acknowledge it. Your posture shifts, ready, even if you're not entirely sure why. That's the pattern now, constant readiness, without clear direction. Historians still debate whether soldiers felt more vulnerable during these fading hours, or if exhaustion dulled their fear enough to make the experience less intense. But standing here, it feels like the opposite. The uncertainty makes everything sharper, because you don't know what's coming next. You don't know when it will end. You don't even know what end looks like anymore. Your shoulders remain tense, your stance firm, your grip unwavering. But beneath all that, there's something else now, something quieter, more persistent. A kind of lingering dread. Not the sharp fear from earlier, not the immediate tension of close combat, but something slower. Something that settles in as the light fades and the world becomes less clear. You take another step, then pause, not fully stopping, just a brief hesitation as you adjust to the shifting conditions around you. Your breathing remains steady, your focus narrowed, your awareness stretched thin across a space that feels both smaller and more uncertain at the same time. The light dims further, shadows lengthen, and as you continue moving through this quieter, more uncertain version of the battle, you begin to understand something that lingers beneath everything else. The end of the day doesn't mean the end of danger. Sometimes, it just changes the way it finds you. Eventually the noise doesn't stop. It fades. Not all at once. Not in a clean, satisfying way. It thins out, voice by voice, movement by movement, until what remains feels less like a battle and more like an echo of one. You notice it slowly. The shouting becomes scattered. The sharp clashes that once filled every moment now come in uneven intervals, separated by stretches of something quieter. Not silence, never silence, but something close enough that you become aware of it. Your body doesn't trust it. Your shoulders stay tense. Your grip remains tight. Because this kind of quiet feels uncertain, unfinished. A mainstream historical fact. Many ancient battles didn't end with a clear signal or formal conclusion. Instead, they dissolved as one side lost cohesion and withdrew, leaving the field gradually quieter, but never instantly safe. You're standing inside that transition now. And it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like waiting. You take a step forward, slower than before, more deliberate. The ground beneath you is different now, not physically changed, but it feels heavier, as if the weight of everything that just happened has settled into it. Dust still hangs in the air, but thinner now, drifting rather than swirling. The light, what's left of it, casts long, uneven shadows that stretch across the ground, in ways that make distances harder to judge. You blink, adjusting. Your eyes are tired. Your whole body is. Historians still argue how soldiers experienced this moment, the aftermath. Some suggest relief came quickly, once immediate danger passed. Others believe the uncertainty lingered, making it difficult to fully relax even when the fighting slowed. Standing here, it feels like the second, because nothing feels finished. You glance around. The movement is different now, less urgent, less coordinated. People are still shifting, still adjusting, but without the same intensity, without the same immediate pressure driving every step. Some figures move away from the main cluster, their pace uneven, direction unclear. Others remain where they are as if unsure whether to continue or stop. You don't see a clear line anymore. Not your side, not theirs, just scattered presence. A quirky detail from ancient sources. After battles, it wasn't uncommon for soldiers to hesitate before fully lowering their guard, sometimes waiting long stretches of time before believing the fighting had truly ended. False endings, moments where combat seemed to stop, only to start again, were not unheard of. You feel that hesitation now. Your shield remains raised, not fully but enough. Your stance stays ready, even as your body begs for rest. You take another step, carefully. Your foot lands with more awareness than before, as if the ground itself might shift under you, even though it doesn't. Your breathing slows slightly, not calm, just less urgent. Your chest rises and falls with effort that feels more controlled now, though still heavy from everything that came before. You swallow. Your throat is still dry. That hasn't changed either. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare becomes clearer here. The aftermath was often as psychologically difficult as the battle itself. The sudden shift from chaos to uncertainty left many soldiers disoriented, unsure how to transition out of survival mode. You feel that disorientation settling in. Your body is still prepared for movement, for reaction, for immediate response. But the environment no longer demands it in the same way. And that mismatch feels strange, uncomfortable. You glance down briefly. Your hands are still gripping tightly, fingers stiff, joints aching slightly from hours of tension. You try to loosen them, just a little. It works, for a moment. Then they tighten again without you thinking about it. Habit, instinct, something your body hasn't let go of yet. A faint sound to your left makes you turn your head. Not sharply this time, more slowly, measured. It's just movement. Someone shifting position. Nothing more. But your body reacts anyway. Subtle tension returning, readiness creeping back in as if it never really left. That's how it is now. Even in this quieter space, the sense of alertness lingers. You take another step forward, then stop. Not because you're told to, not because there's a clear reason, but because something inside you decides it's time to pause, to assess, to understand what's left of this moment. You look ahead. The space feels open now, wider than before, even though the physical distance hasn't changed much. It's the absence of pressure that makes it feel that way. The absence of constant movement, the absence of immediate threat. But that absence doesn't bring comfort. Not yet. Historians still debate how long it took for soldiers to fully relax after battle, or if they ever truly did. Some accounts suggest a gradual release of tension, while others describe a lingering unease that lasted long after the fighting stopped. You understand that unease now, because even as things quiet down, your body hasn't caught up. Your shoulders remain slightly raised, your stance slightly guarded, your breathing still a bit heavier than it should be. You're still here, still in it, even if the battle itself is no longer pressing in on you from every direction. A faint breeze moves through the space, not strong but noticeable. It carries with it the smell of dust, sweat, and something else you don't focus on for too long. You exhale slowly, longer than before. Your chest lowers slightly, a small shift, but meaningful. Because it's the first moment where your body begins to loosen, just a fraction. Not enough to relax fully, but enough to feel the difference. You take one more step forward, careful, measured. And as you stand there, in this quieter, uncertain aftermath, you begin to understand something that doesn't announce itself loudly. The battle doesn't end when the noise stops. It lingers, in your body, in your mind, in the way you hold yourself even when there's nothing left to fight. And letting go of that might take longer than anything that came before. The first thing you notice isn't the pain, It's the delay. You move your hand slightly, just to adjust your grip, and something feels off, not sharp, not immediate, just different. A strange heaviness, a resistance that wasn't there before. You pause, looking down briefly, your focus narrowing to your own arm for the first time in what feels like hours. And that's when it starts to register. Not all at once, but enough. A slow, creeping awareness that something isn't right. A mainstream historical fact. In ancient battles, many injuries weren't immediately noticed due to adrenaline and shock. The body, overwhelmed by stress, often delayed the sensation of pain until moments later, sometimes much later. You're feeling that delay now. Your breathing shifts slightly, your chest tightening, not from fear this time, but from realization. You flex your fingers again. They respond, but not as smoothly as before. There's stiffness, a faint tremor. You don't focus on it too closely. Not yet, because focusing would make it real, and right now, you're not sure you're ready for that. Historians still argue how well ancient soldiers understood injury in the moment. Some suggest experience taught them to recognize signs quickly, while others believe many didn't fully grasp their condition until much later, when the urgency of battle had passed. You suspect you're somewhere in between. Aware, but not fully. You shift your weight slightly, testing your balance. Your legs hold, though they feel heavier than before, fatigue layered over something else, something harder to define. You take a careful step, then another. Each movement deliberate now, not because of immediate danger, but because your body feels less predictable than it did before. A quirky detail from ancient medical practices. Treatments were often basic and improvised. Herbs, bandages, sometimes cauterization. But many soldiers relied first on simple observation, checking movement, breathing, and stability to decide if they could keep going. You're doing the same, testing, assessing, quietly, without fully acknowledging what you might find. You flex your arm again. The sensation returns, dull, persistent, not overwhelming, but present. You exhale slowly. Your shoulders lower just slightly, not from relaxation, but from a shift in focus. The battle may have faded around you, but something else has taken its place. Awareness of your own condition. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare becomes clear here. Survival didn't end with the battle. For many, what came after, dealing with injuries, exhaustion, and limited care, was just as critical. You understand that now in a way that feels immediate, because whatever this is, it matters. You glance around briefly. Others are doing the same. Small movements, checking themselves, testing limbs, adjusting posture. No one is fully at ease. Even in this quieter space, there's a shared tension. Less about external threat, more about internal condition. You take another step, slow, measured. Your foot lands firmly, your balance holding, but the effort feels slightly greater than it should. You notice it. You don't dwell on it. Historians still debate how many soldiers returned from battle with injuries they initially ignored or underestimated. Some accounts suggest minor wounds became serious over time, especially without proper treatment. That thought lingers, quiet, unwelcome. You shift your grip again, testing your hand's strength. It holds, but not perfectly. There's a subtle weakness there, something you can't quite define, but can't ignore either. You tighten your fingers slightly, compensating, adjusting, adapting. That's the pattern now. Not reacting to immediate danger, but managing what's left behind. A faint sound nearby makes you turn your head, not sharply, just enough to register it. Someone sits down slowly, their movements careful, deliberate. Not collapse, just controlled descent. They're feeling it too. Everyone is, in different ways. Your breathing remains steady, though still heavier than normal. Your chest rises and falls with effort that feels more noticeable now that the external chaos has faded. You inhale deeply, hold it for a moment, then exhale slowly. It helps, slightly. You repeat it once more. Better, not perfect, but manageable. You look down again briefly, just a glance, enough to confirm what you already suspect. Something isn't quite right, but it's not stopping you, not yet. And that becomes your focus, not the injury itself, but your ability to keep moving despite it. A quirky observation from historical accounts. Some soldiers reportedly downplayed their injuries even to themselves, choosing to focus on function over condition. If they could move, they continued. If they couldn't, then they stopped. You understand that mindset now, because stopping feels like something you're not ready for. Not here, not yet. You take another step, then another, each one steady, controlled, deliberate. Your body adjusts around the discomfort, compensating in small ways you don't fully think about. That's how you keep going, not by ignoring it completely, but by working around it. Your grip tightens once more, testing strength, reaffirming control. Your stance remains firm, your breathing steady, and as you continue moving through this quieter, uncertain aftermath, you begin to understand something that settles in slowly, but firmly. The battle may be over, but your body hasn't finished experiencing it yet, and what comes next isn't about fighting. It's about enduring what's left behind. It's only now, when the noise has thinned, when the movement has slowed, that your mind begins to catch up with everything your body just went through. And what it finds isn't relief, it's something heavier. You take a slow breath, your chest rising more deliberately this time, as if you're trying to reset something inside yourself. It doesn't quite work. The air still feels thick. Your thoughts still feel crowded. Not chaotic like before, just full. You glance ahead, then to the side, your eyes moving more freely now that you're no longer locked into immediate reaction. But what you see doesn't settle you. It lingers, because now you have time to notice. And noticing is different from surviving. A mainstream historical fact. Many ancient writers, including soldiers themselves, describe the emotional aftermath of battle as deeply unsettling, sometimes more so than the fighting itself. The mind, no longer occupied with immediate survival, began to process what had just happened. You feel that process beginning now, slow, unavoidable. Historians still argue whether ancient soldiers developed resilience to this over time, or if repeated exposure simply buried the impact deeper. Some believe experience hardened them. Others think it left marks that never fully faded. Standing here, it doesn't feel like something that can just disappear. It feels like something that stays. You take another step, then pause. Your body doesn't need to move as urgently anymore, but your mind doesn't know what to do with that change. The constant demand for action is gone, replaced by something quieter but more persistent. Awareness. You become aware of how tired you are, not just physically but mentally. The kind of tired that sits behind your eyes, making everything feel slightly slower, slightly heavier. You blink. Your vision clears, but the feeling remains. A quirky detail from historical accounts. Some soldiers reportedly avoided looking too closely at the battlefield after combat, deliberately keeping their focus narrow to avoid confronting the full scope of what had happened. You understand that instinct immediately, because there's a part of you that doesn't want to look. Not fully, not closely. You keep your gaze moving, never settling too long in one place. Just enough to stay aware, but not enough to linger. Your breathing remains steady but deeper now, less reactive, more controlled. Inhale, exhale. You focus on that rhythm for a moment. It helps, grounds you. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare settles into your thoughts. The fear wasn't just in the moment of combat, it was in the anticipation, and in the memory. The before and after carried their own weight, sometimes heavier than the battle itself. You feel that weight now, not crushing, but present, persistent. You shift your shoulders slightly, the armor creaking softly with the movement. It still feels heavy, but now it's a different kind of heaviness. Less about strain, more about reminder. A physical trace of everything that just happened. You take a step forward again, slower, more deliberate. Not because you have to, but because rushing no longer makes sense. Your grip loosens slightly on your weapon, not fully, just enough to ease the tension in your fingers. They respond slowly, stiffness still lingering from hours of pressure. You flex them once, then again, testing, reclaiming control. Historians still debate whether the emotional toll of ancient battles was openly acknowledged or quietly endured. Some sources suggest it was rarely discussed, seen as something to bear rather than express. You can feel why. Because there aren't clear words for this, not simple ones. It's not just fear, not just relief. It's something in between, something that doesn't resolve easily. You look ahead again. The space feels wider now, emptier in a way that doesn't quite feel comfortable. The absence of constant movement leaves room for thought, and thought fills that space quickly. Too quickly. You inhale again, slower this time, then exhale, letting your shoulders drop just a little more. It's the first real sign of release. Small, but noticeable. Your body's starting to come down from something it held onto tightly for far too long. But your mind is still catching up. A quirky observation from ancient writings. Some warriors reportedly described a strange quiet after battle. Not just external, but internal. A temporary numbness before emotions fully returned. You feel something like that now. Not complete numbness, but a kind of distance. A buffer between you and everything you just experienced. It doesn't feel permanent, just delayed. You take another step, then stop again, not out of necessity, but because movement feels optional now. And that alone feels strange. You stand there for a moment, your breathing steady, your posture relaxed just enough to feel the difference. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's easing, slowly. And as you remain in that quiet space, no longer driven by immediate survival, no longer reacting to constant pressure, you begin to understand something that settles deeper than anything else so far. The battle wasn't just terrifying because of what happened in it. It was terrifying because of what it leaves behind. The memory, the feeling, the awareness that you were there, and that it could happen again. And that understanding, quiet, steady, impossible to ignore, might be the most lasting part of all. You don't leave the battlefield all at once, no one does. There's no signal, no final moment where everything clearly ends and you turn away with certainty. Instead, it happens slowly, almost reluctantly, as if your body needs time to believe it's allowed to step back. You take a step, then another, not forward this time, just away. The space behind you feels unfamiliar, even though it should be safer. Your body doesn't fully trust it yet. Your shoulders remain slightly tense, your grip still holding onto your weapon longer than necessary. Because letting go, even now, feels strange. A mainstream historical fact. Many soldiers in ancient battles didn't immediately leave the field after fighting stopped. Some lingered, checking surroundings, regrouping, or simply trying to process what had happened before moving on. You understand that hesitation completely, because your feet move, but your mind stays anchored. Historians still argue how deeply these experiences affected individuals long term. Some accounts suggest soldiers returned to normal life quickly, while others hint at lingering effects, memories, unease, reactions that followed them long after the battle ended. Standing here, it's hard to imagine this just fading. You take another slow step. The ground feels different now, not because it's changed, but because your purpose has. You're no longer moving towards something, you're moving away from it, and that shift feels heavier than it should. A quirky detail from ancient traditions. Some cultures believed that the spirits of battle lingered on the field after combat, and that leaving too quickly, or without certain rituals, could bring misfortune. Whether believed literally or not, it reflects something real, the sense that the place itself holds on to what happened there. You feel that now, not as superstition, but as presence. Something in the air that hasn't quite settled. You glance back, just once. You shouldn't, but you do. And the sight doesn't shock you. It doesn't overwhelm you in the way it might have earlier. It lingers, quietly, because now your mind has space to absorb it, and that makes it different, heavier. You turn forward again quickly, your breathing steady but deeper than before. Your chest rises and falls with a rhythm that feels more controlled now, less reactive, more intentional. Inhale, exhale, you keep moving, slowly, deliberately. A mainstream truth about ancient warfare settles fully into place now. The most terrifying part wasn't just the danger or the chaos, it was the way it stayed with you, how it followed you beyond the battlefield, carried in memory and instinct in the quiet moments afterward. You feel that truth settling into you now, not dramatically, just steadily. Your grip finally loosens, not all at once, gradually. Your fingers release their tension, your hand lowering slightly, your arm feeling lighter without the constant pressure. It's a small change, but meaningful, because it's the first real sign that something is ending, or at least changing. Historians still debate whether ancient soldiers found ways to cope with these experiences, or if they simply carried them without fully understanding how they shaped them. But one thing remains consistent across accounts. The memory of battle rarely disappeared completely. You understand why. Because even now, as you step further away, the sensations linger. The heat, the noise, the tension in your muscles. They don't vanish. They echo. A quirky observation from historical writings. Some warriors described hearing phantom sounds after battle. The faint echo of drums, the distant clash of weapons, long after the field had gone quiet. Whether real or imagined, it speaks to how deeply the experience embedded itself in the mind. You pause for a moment, just a brief stop. Your body relaxes slightly more, your shoulders lowering, your stance less rigid. The air feels cooler now, or maybe you're just noticing it differently. You take a slow breath, then another, each one deeper than the last. Your chest expands fully, your lungs filling in a way they couldn't before when everything was tight, compressed, urgent. You exhale slowly, long, steady, and with that breath, something shifts. Not completely, but enough. Enough to feel the difference between then and now. You take one more step away, then another, and the battlefield begins to feel like something behind you, rather than something you're still inside. Not gone, but distant. And as that distance grows, even slightly, your mind begins to settle into a quieter rhythm. Not empty, not free of memory, but calmer, slower, more aware of the present moment than the one you've just left. You keep walking, no urgency, no pressure, just movement, steady, measured. And as you do, you begin to understand something that lingers gently rather than heavily. You made it through. Not unchanged, not untouched, but through. And sometimes, that's all survival really means. The air softens around you as you continue moving, each step quieter than the last, each breath deeper, slower, more even. The tension that once held your shoulders tight begins to dissolve, not all at once, but in small, almost unnoticed releases. Your hands loosening, your posture easing, your thoughts stretching out instead of racing ahead. The sounds fade further now, blending into something distant and indistinct, like a memory already beginning to blur at the edges. Even the weight you carried, armour, fear, urgency, feels lighter. Not because it's gone, but because you're no longer holding it the same way. You keep walking, not toward anything specific, just forward, into quieter space. The ground beneath you feels steady again, familiar, no longer shifting with pressure or urgency. Your breathing finds a rhythm that feels natural now, in and out, slow, even, safe. And as that rhythm settles, so does everything else. The images soften, the sharpness fades. What once felt immediate begins to drift, becoming something more distant, something your mind can hold without strain. You don't need to think about it anymore. You don't need to hold on to it. You can just let it rest, let it settle, let it fade into the background where it belongs. Your steps slow, then soften, then almost disappear into stillness. And in that stillness, there's no pressure, no urgency, just quiet, calm, steady quiet, the kind that lets your mind finally loosen its grip and rest.